Welcome to the F1Stop show. I'm your host, Sam Oney, and with me is Wes Spearman. This is episode 16. Wes, how are you this evening?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I feel quite tired actually. Been very warm the last few days. It's like
Yeah,
summer's arrived and it's just hitting us like a brick wall at the moment. But yeah, I'm pretty good. How are you?
yeah, not too bad. Not too bad. The weather is, as you said, very warm, and yeah, just trying to combat, just trying to battle out with the weather, really, because it's so warm and stuff. But let's get into it. The Azerbaijan Grand Prix was quite an eventful race, and it was a Red Bull 1-2 with Max Verstappen taking the win, becoming the sixth different driver to win in Baku. How do you feel about it? What do you make of the race?
Yeah, I thought that once again Baku has uh, sort of given us some good racing, some good entertainment. As you said, it was quite eventful. Certainly saw a lot more overtakes there than we did at Monaco or last week before, whenever it was. Um, yeah, overall, I think it was a pretty good race. It helps that there are a few retirees, I suppose, with four Ferrari-powered cars not finishing the race, which we'll get onto in just a bit. Yeah, I think the highlight of the race for me was probably the AlphaTauri pit crew taping up Yuki
Yeah,
Tsunoda's rear wing.
yeah,
That was brilliant. I just
that's
all picked
probably
that
the
up first. It's like,
highlight. That's
what is
probably
going on?
my highlight of the race. Yeah.
Yeah, most definitely.
Um, but yeah, you said four Ferrari powered cars didn't finish the race, including, well, the Scuderia themselves. Charles Leclerc, he's retired. This was his second retirement in his last three races after he didn't finish in Baku. And Carlos Sainz as well, he went out as well.
Yeah, it's a huge disappointment for Ferrari, given how strong they were in those sort of first 4 or 5 rounds. So yeah, for obviously Leclerc to DNF in Spain and DNF in Baku. Same with Carlos Sainz, no points from Baku whatsoever. Whereas Red Bull got pretty much, well, they got as many points as they could possibly get. So Max Verstappen won the race, that's 25. And then Perez got P2, which is what, 18
18.
points plus the extra one for fastest lap as well. So Red Bull literally couldn't have got any more points out of the weekend. Unless, of course, there was a sprint race beforehand, but there wasn't. So yeah, Red Bull made huge, well, they're obviously now leading drivers' championship. Verstappen was already leading the drivers' championship, but I think Perez has now gone up into second as well. He's right in the championship, like we mentioned, I think last week before. Um, he's now right in now. I wouldn't necessarily say battling with Verstappen because there was that I can't remember which lap it was on. When was it? Lap 15, where obviously Perez was leading the race at that point, and then Verstappen obviously Baku straight. I think it's the longest straight in F1 now that China's off the calendar. Um, just an easy move for Verstappen to make, and I think the engineers got over to Perez to basically say no fighting, which I mean it's 8 rounds in, and I get Verstappen is their number one driver, but at the same time, you want to see your drivers, you want to see racing, and you want to see battles between two drivers, but it's a team sport at the end of the day, so I can understand where Red Bull are coming from. Um, yeah, going back to Ferrari, I think they're now leading the charts in terms of most DNFs or most retirements. Whereas at the start of the season, the first three races, we were saying, oh well, if Red Bull can sort their engine issues out, they could be in a much better place, and that's exactly what they've done. Whereas Ferrari have taken a step back and yeah, have had a poor run of races. Spain, Monaco, and now Baku as well. When we go to Canada next week, another high-speed track like Baku, heavy on the brakes. First time Canada's on the calendar since 2019. It's the first time we've raced there in 3 years, I think is. So whether it's the high speed or high speed tracks that the Ferrari engines are coping with, because Spain is relatively high speed as well. I'm not too sure, but yeah, Ferrari certainly need to figure these issues out sooner rather than later if they want to be battling Verstappen and Perez again.
Yeah, and I read not too long ago, probably a few days ago, that Ferrari team principal Mattia Binotto, he said he'd rather fix an unreliable car, or he said fixing an unreliable car is easier than the other way around. How much do you agree with that? Because I think for me, if my car isn't doing what it's supposed to do, and you know, my mechanics, my engineers can find what the problem is, surely 9 times out of 10, that's gonna, you know, make my cars to be more efficient, better performance.
Yeah, so yeah, it was like, would you rather have a fast but unreliable car or a reliable but slower car? And it was Red Bull the unreliable then, but obviously Ferrari's the unreliable one now. I mean, both are still quick cars. They're miles ahead of Mercedes at this point in time. Yeah, so all of a sudden the shoe is now on the other foot, with Ferrari being the one suffering reliability issues. And yeah, what Matteo Binotto, whatever he said around Grand Prix, whenever it was, um, yeah, I suppose it's making it look a bit silly now, if he did say that. Yeah, I mean, it goes to Mercedes as well. See, they're sort of the opposite to Ferrari and Red Bull at the moment, where they have a reliable car. I don't think they've had a DNF this year at Mercedes. Can't remember.
Yeah, they haven't had a
They just
DNF
keep,
so far.
yeah, but they keep picking up points regularly. I mean, Russell again, a P3 finish for him is still in the top five. Hamilton, I think, got P4, P5 as well in the end. But yeah, they've still got to fix the porpoising, which again we'll get onto a bit later. Yeah, as I said, the shoe is on the other foot now for Ferrari, and yeah, with the high-speed track in Montreal, Circuit Gilles Villeneuve coming up this weekend, it'll be interesting to see how they go. Whether I doubt they've been able to make any changes or figure out the issue that caused the DNFs in Baku. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Montreal pans out for sure. Whether it is high-speed tracks that are having this detrimental effect on Ferrari's engines.
Yeah. So my next one is what were the highlights? What were your highlights of the race when you looked back and watched it? Because you know, is this round 8? I think.
Yeah, round 8.
Yeah, round 8. 8 races so far, and there were quite a few good overtakes. You know, close racing, and that's what we want to see. What were your highlights from Baku? And who impressed you the most?
I mean, as you mentioned, there were quite a few overtakes. I just watched the highlights back before we came on air. But I remember, I think it was Esteban Ocon got overtaken a couple of times. I think it was the same corner as well, turn 4, turn 5. First, it was Hamilton up the inside, and then it was Vettel around the outside. So you've got to ask a few questions about Ocon's defensive driving there. I suppose tyres and all that comes into it as well. I really like Vettel's sort of spin and then recovery.
Yeah.
I think it was around about turn 4, turn 5.
Turn 4.
I think
yeah.
He lost the brakes turning into the corners, went down the slip road, if you like, recovery road, whatever, runoff, that's the word. And then obviously kept the car running, lit up the rear tyres, so he began pointing in the right direction again. And I suppose was quite lucky not to hit, was it Magnussen coming around the corner at that point as well? Was it Haas?
Yeah.
I can't remember now. But it just looked so smooth compared to.
It did. I was like, wow. That's brilliant.
I mean, he'd rather if he didn't spin and have to recover the car anyway, but at the same time, it was pretty good. I mean, he only lost one place out of that, whereas he could have lost quite a few more potentially. Yeah, as mentioned at the start, highlight is probably probably Yuki Tsunoda getting his rear wing taped up, because I mean, it obviously doesn't do the car much good not having, or or Tsunoda much good, not having DRS for race. But I suppose he wouldn't have had DRS anyway with half the rear wing technically just flapping around basically, which is obviously a safety hazard if it then flies off. Yeah, I'm not sure whether the FIA were too happy with it, but we haven't heard of any penalties as of yet, and that's on recording. It's Thursday, so quite a way after the race. Yeah, both McLaren's got points as well. Vettel had a good race. Pierre Gasly had another good race. Yeah, good solid points from the midfield drivers.
Indeed. Pierre Gasly's overtake on Daniel Ricciardo on, I think it was turn 5. I thought that was a great overtake as well. Really enjoyed it. Though I would have expected Daniel Ricciardo to maybe defend a bit better, defend his position. You know, the Australian hasn't had the best season so far, but hopefully he can improve, and he needs that boost, Daniel Ricciardo, because he's a great driver. He's a good driver, but I just think he needs that push, you know, to really impress everyone at McLaren and himself as well. Just boost up his confidence.
Yeah, I mean he's currently 13th in the drivers, or joint 12th essentially, with him and Magnussen on 15 points, whereas Lando Norris has got 50. He's only 12 points behind Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, whatever's happened to Ricciardo, whether he's not comfortable in the team, whether there's some sort of mental games going on between him and Norris, which I don't think there would be. Especially you have to have a little bit of rivalry there with the teammate, because obviously you want to beat your teammate wherever possible. Yeah, whether he's not comfortable in the McLaren car still. It's been a year and a bit since he changed teams, so you'd think by now that he'd be pretty comfortable with the car and the setup. But yeah, for whatever reason, it's just not going too smoothly for Ricciardo. And whether we'll see, I can't remember when his contract runs out, but whether we'll see him change teams again at the end of this year or next year, it could well happen, given his performances at McLaren haven't exactly set the world alight. Whereas he obviously got the win in Monza, was it last year, I think? Yeah, Norris has been by far the more consistent driver. But yeah, as long as he keeps picking up points wherever possible. I mean, ideally McLaren will want him finishing top 5, top 6, top 7. Then if Ferrari have a good day, then that's less achievable, if you like. But yeah, McLaren will be hoping that Ricciardo pulls his finger out and sort of gets his arse into gear sooner rather than later.
Yeah. So how would you rate the race, Azerbaijan? So how would you rate the race? Also, Max Verstappen, another milestone for him. Oh wow, I forgot about that. Another milestone for Max Verstappen. 25 F1 wins. What do you make of it? That's great. I think he's got more than Jim Clark, Niki Lauda, I believe. Someone else, but I can't quite remember. But I know he's ahead of those two. Yeah, 25 wins in F1.
Yeah, I think 25 wins for Verstappen is quite impressive. I mean, he's been at Red Bull now for, I think this is sixth year with Red Bull. Joined in 2016, when Horner swapped him in Kvyat. But he's only 24 years old. When you consider Sir Lewis Hamilton is 38, maybe 39-ish, I can't remember now. He's got a lot of years left in him in Formula One. So whatever Hamilton's record for race wins is once he retires, whenever that may be, he might continue racing for another 3-4 years, who knows. But it could potentially be under threat if Red Bull keep producing cars like they have been the last 3-4 years or so. And Verstappen, so the quality driver that he is, stays at the level he is now, then yeah, potentially he can get close, or if not even break Hamilton's record for race wins, because it was 25 race wins in basically 6 years. He wasn't winning a race at Toro Rosso. Just over 4 race wins a year, which is decent. So I've dug myself into a hole here and trying to do some maths to try and work out how many race wins he'll have. But let's say he races for another 12 years until he's 36. So essentially, we've got to times what he has now by 3, but potentially more so, because in the early days, of course, Mercedes were dominating. So he could potentially end up with 100 race wins. Who knows? Could be on the same level as Schumacher by the end. Maybe not break Hamilton's records. Yeah, I think he'll certainly be up there. And yeah, I'm waffling on a bit, and we haven't got much time. But he could potentially go down as one of the greatest drivers of all time if he keeps up the form he showed over the past 2-3 years.
So, after watching all the highlights, all the drama, the overtakes, the DNFs, Max Verstappen 25 F1 wins, out of 10, how do you rate Baku?
I think it was a pretty good race. A lot of overtakes, a few good battles, especially in the midfield, which is what I usually tend to look out for anyway. Being a McLaren fan, that's where they are nowadays, I suppose. I'd probably give it an 8 out of 10. I think it was quite good. No controversy to it really, which take it down a few points. But overall, I think it was a pretty good race, quite entertaining. 8 out of 10 for me.
A clean race. Other than Tsunoda's rear wing mishap, there were no crashes, no collisions or anything, which was quite good. It's quite good. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed watching the race. I thought it was really exciting. 8 out of 10 for me as well. Really exciting. The overtakes, Vettel, Gasly, Hamilton, all brilliant. And yeah, 8 out of 10 for me. So, Canada. For the first time since 2019, Canada is back on the F1 grid.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. I quite like Canada as a track as a whole, I suppose. I think when I go and want to play the F1 games, I don't have much time now, but a few years ago, for some reason I quite like Canada and Hungary. I don't know why I liked Hungary so much. Yeah, Canada is a track I quite like racing on the games, and it's good to see it back on the calendar after 2-3 years away. I don't know whether the drivers or mechanics will enjoy it much going from Baku to Canada in within a few days. Basically, they've got to get there by Thursday, which I know flights and all that, but that's a lot of kit to haul over from Far East Europe, Far West Asia to Canada. It's a pretty long way. It's perhaps not the most sensible decision by the FIA Formula One, whoever makes the calendar. I think the drivers and mechanics would have quite enjoyed a week break before going to Canada if they had to put it after Baku. Yeah, really looking forward to the race. As I mentioned earlier, quite a fast track, heavy on the brakes. You're probably looking at Ferrari and Red Bull again. Potentially Mercedes, and obviously Hamilton's got a really good record around there. And Mercedes are obviously they'll finish best of the rest, I think, no doubt. But you could potentially be looking at your Aston Martins, your Alpines, perhaps, your McLarens, your AlphaTauris, maybe some of those midfield teams. I think one of those midfield teams will surprise us this weekend and maybe sneak into the top 5, top 6.
Yuki Tsunoda. I'm just putting it out there. I don't know. Yuki Tsunoda.
Maybe. I was thinking more of a Pierre Gasly, Lando Norris. I don't know if that's much of a surprise. If they are, I suppose they're the number one drivers of their teams. But yeah, we could see a Guan Yu Zhou maybe. He was having a good race in Baku until he had to retire because, again, I think that was an engine failure. They just had mechanical failure on the radio. Yeah, I reckon. I mean, Bottas even has been having a pretty decent season so far. He could sneak into a top 7, top 8 maybe. Kevin Magnussen perhaps. Who knows? But yeah, I'm looking forward to Canada.
Yeah. So a few things on Canada. 70 laps. Between 2007 and 2000, I believe 2019. So in a 12-year time frame, we have had no other pole sitters besides Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton. So the chances are, ladies and gentlemen, that this year Sebastian Vettel and Lewis Hamilton are not going to be on pole. Oh, I don't like that.
I think that's gonna change this year.
Oh, I don't like that. I don't like that. The prospect of not seeing Hamilton or Vettel taking pole position in Canada, I don't like that. Well, yeah, 70 laps around Canada, and the lap record in Montreal was set by Valtteri Bottas in 2019, a 1:13.078, which poses the question: Do you think a new lap record will be set in Canada this year? And if so, what time?
I don't think so. I think the cars are a little bit slower than last year, the previous regulations. I can't quite remember now. I don't think they're quite as fast. It's probably me not paying attention if they have been quicker. But I don't think we'll see a new lap record. Let's just have a look at the 2021 Baku Grand Prix, because I can't remember the lap times for this year. I think it was around 140 something. Then, well, yeah. Last year, Verstappen fastest lap in the race at 144.481. And let's have a look at the 2022 Baku Grand Prix. It's not helpful. It hasn't come up straight away like it did for the other one. Do bear with. Just talking about yourselves for a short time. It's not telling me. It doesn't want to say. Fastest lap Perez a 146. So around about a second and a half slower in Baku. We'll probably be looking at something similar in Canada, given it's, as we mentioned, similar to Baku in some ways, and it's quite fast, quite high speed, lots of long straights. Yeah. To answer your question, no, I don't think it was a lap record broken.
Okay. So, all right then. So, well, let's predict the Canadian Grand Prix then. Who's your pole sitter? Who's your driver of the day? And your last one, your top 10 standings, but we're not going to list the top 10. Race finishers from 6 down to 10. Go.
Interesting, yeah. Pole sitter, I'm going to go Charles Leclerc. Just as he's had about 6 poles this year already. Got pole in Baku, so I don't see why he can't put his car on pole again this weekend at another high-speed circuit. Driver of the day. Again, we've only got one right in the year and a bit we've been doing this. But I'm going to go Pierre Gasly. Had a good race last time out in Baku, and hopefully can build up that form for this weekend. And then 10th to 6th is an interesting one, because I think that's a lot harder than sort of 5th to 1st, because you pretty much know like the top 3, top 4. You don't get your Ferraris, your Red Bulls, maybe a Mercedes, and maybe a midfield team perhaps. But yeah, 6th to 10th, it could be quite interesting. 10th, I'm gonna go. I'll go Daniel Ricciardo for 10th. A couple places lower than he finished in Baku. 9th, Yuki Tsunoda. 8th, Valtteri Bottas. 7th, Fernando Alonso. I'm running out of places now. 6th, Lewis Hamilton.
Oh, that's quite all right. So you're
no,
leaving out.
let's go.
So you're leaving out Sebastian Vettel. Who else? Esteban Ocon, Magnussen, perhaps. Yeah, so you're leaving out.
Potentially, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I might go Norris 10th actually instead of Ricardo now. I think Bottas will sneak into the top 10. He's got a good record at Canada, Bottas, so I think he'll get a points finish.
Right, just to run through it because time is against us. Pole sitter, Max Verstappen. Driver of the day, I'm gonna go with. I don't know. It's always a hard one. I don't like driver of the day predicting it. I'm gonna go with Sebastian Vettel. So then, 10th to 6th, 10th place, Kevin Magnussen. That's my wild card. That's my wild card. I think if anyone's gonna be a dark horse in Canada, I think it'll be Kevin Magnussen. 10th place. 9th place. Fernando Alonso. 8th, I'm gonna say. I don't know. It's getting hard now because the midfield, you don't really look at them like you said.
Yeah.
8th place.
So it could be any number of.
Gasly is going to be higher
drivers.
Gasly is going to be higher up, I know. Lance Stroll? I'm not sure. But
Home Grand Prix.
Yeah, but he's not really a driver that, pops out. It's not really a driver that, But yeah, is that 8th place, right?
That was 8th place, yeah.
8th place, Lance Stroll. So 7th and 6th. 7th place. Right. 6th place, I think. 6th place will be Pierre Gasly. I know that. Yeah, 6th place will be Pierre Gasly. Then 7th, Valtteri Bottas, if I haven't named him.
I don't think. Did I mention Pierre Gasly? I can't remember. I might put Alonso instead of Gasly. Oh, is what it is. Locked in.
Is what it is. Anyway, we've got just over 6 minutes, so let's talk about the FIA regulations to make changes to stop porpoising, also known as bouncing. So it's been pretty much a huge thing, porpoising, especially for Mercedes, and it's not great. The whole bouncing and stuff like that. Lewis Hamilton, I think, has said a lot about it. Carlos Sainz as well in the Ferrari. So, and FIA have made changes to make it safer for the drivers against this bouncing issue. What are your views on it?
Yeah, I think we obviously saw Hamilton struggle to get out of the car after Baku, and it took him quite a long time to get out of it. So I wonder how he would have reacted if, say, the car was on fire, for example, because you obviously got to get out of the car within a certain amount of time. He wasn't in a good state at all. We could see how much the car was bouncing down the straight from all the camera angles. Hopefully it's not injured him too much. I know, as you said, other drivers have been complaining about it, but I think Mercedes have been the most prominent team and a couple of drivers that have said we need to do something about it. Obviously, Christian Horner and Red Bull have basically said, "Oh, we don't have a problem with it. It's something for Mercedes to sort." The FIA have decided to step in, and they said quite a technical thing. I won't read it all out, but basically, I think what they're asking the teams to do, or what they're putting in place, is sort of a minimum ride height that the cars have to run at.
Yeah.
What a few of the teams have found is that increasing the ride height, putting the car up a few millimeters, centimeters, whatever it may be, just helps the airflow and stops the porpoising essentially, or certainly reduces it. And Mercedes have obviously been resistant to that so far. But yeah, for the FIA to step in, she makes it a bit safer, I suppose. But if it's only some teams being affected by porpoising, then surely that's an issue that those teams need to sort out rather than something that the FIA needs to step in. I'm not exactly 100% sure who has complained about it, whether it's been more than half. I think if it was more than half the teams, then yeah, fair enough. The FIA can step in and do something. If it's just 1, 2, 3 teams, whatever, I mean, the main one is Mercedes, and obviously they've been at the forefront of F1 for the last 10 years or so. Whether the FIA have stepped in because of what they've said, Lewis Hamilton in particular, not too sure. But if the FIA have stepped in because it's affecting everyone on the grid, then yeah, fair enough. But if it's just Mercedes or the FIA sucking up to Mercedes, then I'm not too sure about that, to be honest. But if it makes the racing better and the stops injury to drivers, then that's what it's there to do. And yeah, hopefully it does that.
Well, it remains to be seen. Will the increase in height of a car help, or will the increase of the car reduce injury for drivers, or will it just continue to make more damage? Who knows? Well, we've come to the end of another episode of the F1Stop show. I've been your host, Sam Oney, and it's a goodbye from me. Bye-bye, and it's a goodbye from Wes.
Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoy the Canadian Grand Prix this weekend.